Chapter 1254, Exaggerated. Bang! When the shadow blasted an air cannon forward, Klein acted as though he had sensed it ahead of time. His body jerked backward, and he somersaulted in the air, landing steadily several steps away. During this process, his right hand continued to press down on the half-top hat on his head, making him seem rather relaxed. Seeing that Inuni and the shadow didn't attempt to chase and continue their attacks, the smile on his face became even more obvious. It's really impolite to interrupt others while they're speaking. I wanted to discuss how to deal with you in front of all of you, but I can only avoid that now. As he spoke, his left face, which formed from a cluster of transparent maggots, trembled twice, as if he was trying to wink at his former marionette and his former shadow. Then, with a beaming smile on his face, he walked back to Colin Iliad, Derek, and Lovia and shrugged. The owners of this place aren't welcoming us. We can only head out and discuss how to resolve the problem then. Colin Iliad didn't think lowly of this exaggerated powerhouse just because he didn't seem capable of controlling his emotions. This was because he had shown his expertise and meticulousness towards detail when handling the previous matters. This wasn't something a demigod who had lost his mind could do. All right, the City of Silver's chief responded to Klein's suggestion. Of course, Derek had no objections, while Lovia remained silent and didn't say a word. Hence, the four demigods and the Silver Knight marionette retraced their steps. They walked out of the giant king's court's door, and Klein even got the silver-armored guard to pull the huge door and slowly close it. It appeared like a very polite gesture. Throughout the entire process, Inuni, who had layers of black wings on his back, and the pure shadow just stood watching. They didn't attempt to stop him, as though an invisible wall had restrained their movements. After a while, dusk dissipated and darkness descended. All awaited the light of dawn to illuminate everything. In this quiet and dead world, a ray of light finally rose, bringing with it a long-awaited dawn. At this moment, Inuni and the shadow heard knocking sounds at the door of the giant king's court. Someone was knocking on the door. Knock, knock, knock. After this continued a few more times, the door let out a creaking sound as it opened heavily. Wearing a black trench coat, Klein maintained the smile on the right side of his face as he entered the giant king's court first. He walked up the stairs step by step, and the other demigods, along with his marionette, followed one step behind. After reaching the end of the halfway, Klein stopped and said to Inuni and the shadow, who were more than 10 meters away, "Please forgive me for not waiting for you to say, 'Come in.' Perhaps it's because this spot is too far from the main door, so you didn't hear my knocking. As you know, as a gentleman, I only know how to use my fingers to strike, not slap with my palms." The moment he finished speaking, Inuni, who hadn't spoken since the beginning, spoke. "Next, you'll deal with Shadow by yourself, and let the people of the City of Silver hold me back." "Oh?" Klein let out a loud nasal grunt while wearing an exaggerated smile, as though he was waiting for Inuni to give a further explanation. At the same time, he raised his left hand and pressed his face. The transparent and twisted maggots began to squirm about, some boring in, others crawling out and quickly completing an exchange. With a shadow over his face, Inuni, with his black, slightly curled hair that reached his shoulders, continued in a deep voice. "You didn't summon a projection from the historical void in advance, because you know that Shadow can summon the projection of the Staff of the Stars and simulate the powers of the Angel of Time. It will accelerate the flow of time to disperse your angel helpers." Similarly, he didn't make any preparations because of the same reason. And if you summon a saint that can last longer, he can do the same. Both of you offset each other. "I hate playing cards with myself." Klein nodded heavily, expressing his agreement, and laughed out loud. Inuni, whose face was blurry, glanced at him and the three demigods of the City of Silver. "Therefore, you turned the Silver Knight guarding the door into your marionette, planning on using it as a chip to tip the balance. This problem is his, not mine. He actually doesn't have a target to turn into a marionette. Or perhaps, why don't you sacrifice yourself?" The corners of Klein's mouth curled up as he said to his former marionette, Inuni. Inuni retracted his gaze and turned to examine Colin Iliad, Derek, and Lovia. "You and Shadow cancel each other out. The prerequisite for using a marionette to win is that they can hold me back." Just as he said that, the two shoulders of the marionette that had been corrupted by the power of the sleeping dark angel squirmed as a head grew out of each. The three heads were covered in shadows and had black curly hair that reached his shoulders. However, they gave people the feeling that one was young and the other old. Before Klein and the demigods could react, Inuni's right body suddenly tore apart, causing the aged head to take away a third of his body. The body that split apart rapidly squirmed and instantly became complete. On the shadow over the head's surface, a pair of eyes protruded with vertical, pale golden pupils. Suddenly, the magnificent staircase leading to the ancient god's residence collapsed, turning into a desolate moor. At the end of the moor was a pitch-black city overgrown with weeds. City of Silver. Derek's heart tightened upon seeing such a realistic scene. He was worried that the unknown enemy would drag him and the other demigods to the City of Silver and destroy it. As for Lovia, her gaze froze as her body trembled when Inuni grew two heads. It was as if she could sense the aura of an absolute high-leveled entity. Colin Iliad surveyed his surroundings and crossed his two swords that were covered in the light of dawn before pushing them out. He said in a deep voice, "This is fake." At this moment, Klein covered his mouth with his left hand that was made of transparent maggots. He yawned and asked Inuni's main body with a smile, "Will you be stronger in dreams? Or can you cross the boundary and launch an attack?" Yes, if it were me, I would definitely consider using a dream to lure the enemy into entering my attack range. The moment he said that, the desolate moor and the distant castle dissipated at the same time. The magnificent staircase, which was illuminated by the light of dawn, appeared once again. At this moment, the left side of Inuni's body tore away. The young head had taken away a third of his flesh. The shadow covering his face was quickly replaced by a resplendent golden light. It was as if there were two miniature suns in his eyes. "The sun?" Klein first voiced out a question before laughing so hard that he couldn't straighten his back. "Ha ha, you want to use the unshadowed domain to break through the Silver Knight's light concealment?" "Yes, we have 3 Silver Knights on our side. That is worthy of your attention, but have you considered the feelings of Shadow? You don't, you only think of yourself. He's only a shadow, so have you considered how weakened he would be in the unshadowed domain?" At this point, Klein laughed even louder. Even the transparent worms of spirit crawling on his left face sped up their movements. "Ha ha ha ha, also, have you thought about the beyonder powers of corruption, degeneration, and darkness? Have you seriously considered the negative effects that the unshadowed domain will bring you?" After laughing, Klein straightened his back and asked seriously, "How should I address you now?" "Enen Ausnini." Inuni, whose main body was still covered in shadows, slowly took a deep breath and said, "If you had chosen the hunter pathway, you would definitely be stronger than you are now." Before he could finish his sentence, the layers of black wings on his back suddenly spread out. They kept expanding, covering the sky and wrapped towards the magnificent staircase. Faint shadows immediately covered the area. Then, Inuni directly crossed the invisible boundary and descended in front of Colin Iliad, Lovia, and Derek. He actually had the means to break through the obstruction. The young him, who had split off as the Sun Saint, immediately raised his arms. The light of dawn turned blazing hot, illuminating every corner of the magnificent staircase, leaving no shadows. Nothing could hide within. Unshadowed domain. However, the shadows around him didn't fade. The dark wings that enveloped Inuni's body blocked out pure sunlight. As for Shadow, it seemed to be covered in a cloak. Although it was much dimmer, it didn't show any signs of weakness. At the same time, Inuni's split-off, aged body pushed out his right palm. A violent but illusory gust of wind appeared around him, carrying with it an invisible, multicolored intent that gushed towards Klein and his Silver Knight marionette. Mind deprivation. It could awe the target, make him feel fear, show signs of frenzy, or lose a portion of his rationality. And now, because Klein's spirit was incomplete, he was on the brink of losing control. He couldn't even control his emotions and reactions very well. If he were to suffer the effects of mind deprivation, there was a high chance that he would lose control on the spot and break down into a monster. Inuni understood what had happened to him and understood his weakness. The moment he launched the attack, he allowed the spectator saint to use an area of effect attack that Klein would find difficult to defend against and find unbearable. The strong winds that were tainted with all kinds of emotions and will instantly engulfed Klein. However, half of the crazy adventurer, who had half a normal body and half a terrifying body, didn't show any sign of warped expressions, manifestation of godhood, or physical breakdown. Instead, his exaggerated smiling right eye became extremely calm. While waiting for the City of Silver's expedition team, he had already summoned Miss Justice and got her to make up a virtual persona that stemmed from his lampooning, clown-like character, allowing his spirit to become complete for a certain amount of time. This was the reason why he appeared relatively rational when he left the guard's residence, only to appear exaggerated and crazy when he rendezvoused with the City of Silver's expedition team. Furthermore, this virtual persona could also withstand several attacks from the mind domain. The coldness in his eyes quickly faded away. The corner of his right lip curled up, becoming symmetrical with a curled worm of spirit that was crawling on the left. This was a sincere smile,